One of the things you learn as a sports reporter and a sports anchor is that your brain sees images, and your images tell your mouth what to say and how to talk. Roger, to be honest with you, that's like the secret sauce of cable news. How long can you keep it going? Do you get your producers in the control room time to get an analyst up on the air, on the phone, to get a reporter up? If you can do that, you're going to have the ability to keep that story on the air longer, which we hope keeps the audience longer and builds, which is the intent of that.
Welcome to Leadership, the podcast where leadership meets real-world insights. In each episode, you can eavesdrop on exclusive conversations with top thought leaders, best-selling authors, and experts in leadership, communication, relationships, culture, and everything else that shapes your effectiveness in the workplace and in your personal life. Leadership is here for you. Now, here's our host, himself a seasoned coach and best-selling author, Dr. Roger Dean Duncan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership. In a time of rapid communication, growing polarization, and global uncertainty, the role of journalism has never been more vital or more scrutinized. At the intersection of truth, trust, and transparency is the journalist, the storyteller tasked with informing the public, holding power to account, and navigating a world in which fact is sometimes intermingled with fiction. For this episode of Leadership, we're joined by a voice trusted by millions, Bill Hemmer. As the veteran journalist and co-anchor of America's Newsroom on Fox News, Bill has spent decades covering some of the most pivotal events in modern history, from presidential elections to breaking global crises. Along with his decades of experience, Bill brings a deep respect for the craft of storytelling. In this episode, we'll explore Bill's journey through the fast-paced world of broadcast journalism, the leadership lessons he's learned behind the desk and in the field, and how he sees the future of media in an era driven by clicks, speed, and skepticism. What does it mean to be a credible voice in a time when credibility is constantly challenged? And how can journalism rebuild trust while still asking tough questions? Let's find out. Bill Hemmer, welcome to Leadership.
Roger, thank you for your time. It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Let's go back in time a bit. I understand your interest in broadcasting started when you were in high school. Tell us about that.
That's a remarkable little thing. I went to a great high school, and 1,000 boys, Catholic, west side of Cincinnati. And I tell you, Roger, I think like from day one walking in that building, you know, God bless them, but they were putting pressure on us to figure out what we're going to do with our lives. And I don't know about you, but I think 15 is too young to figure that out. And my dad was a mattress salesman. So I thought, well, I'll go into sales. And, you know, by the time I got out of there, we had this opportunity to start this little radio station in the tower of the building, which was an attic until we put a record player in there. And a buddy of mine, like, we spun records every day for 3 weeks, and then they cut us off. I guess they didn't think it was that good of an idea after all. But I enjoyed it. I had the attention of the school, and when it came time to pick a major, I went broadcast journalism. And that's really when it started. Roger, when I was young, I just want you to understand, I know you're in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm Cincinnati, Ohio. So we got that Midwest connection, I would argue, here.
Yeah.
The great Midwest, which I think is highly underappreciated by the rest of America. And I think there's been an enormous renaissance in the great Midwest. Every time I go home, or Indianapolis or Columbus or Detroit, I see it all the time. When I was growing up, I knew two things, sports and music, and I pursued both. I figured I'd be a disc jockey. I mean, when you're 15, 16 years old.
You're right.
What are you thinking about? You know, it seemed like a fun job, and one thing led to another, and obviously that got me started, but that's not where I ended.
Well, after earning a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism, you worked for a while at a CBS affiliate as a sports reporter. Then you took a nearly year-long backpacking trip to, among other places, New Zealand, Hong Kong, China, Vietnam, Nepal, India, Egypt, Israel, and Russia. Hope I got all that right.
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty good.
I understand that you credit that experience with helping you land a job with CNN in Atlanta. Tell us, what did you learn on that trip, and what did you learn at CNN?
Ooh, okay. It's a big question. I don't want to be too long-winded for you, so I'll try and be succinct as possible. It was the single most impressionable experience of my life. You have to remember that most of those countries you listed at the time were considered third world before they were emerging markets. This is 1992, 1993. We have the anniversary of 9/11 tomorrow, and New York recognizes that every year, 24 years, I do believe. 1992 and 1993. It was a reasonably placid period in the world. And you could do this without thinking you were going to run into a significant problem. I look back at that now and I think, wow, how fortunate was I to take that period of time in global history? It was hugely educational. That was the intent. Every day I woke up, I did something that I had never done before in my life. And you do that for 10 months, a year, Roger, and you'd be surprised how many experiences you stack up. How did it help me? I felt great pressure to do this at age 27, to travel with books, right before email, right before ATMs. I just went to Istanbul in August, and Roger, I could leave my hotel with only my iPhone. I didn't need a passport. I needed a backpack. I didn't need a wallet. I didn't need cash. None of it. And what continues to amaze me is when I get back overseas again and see, like in the digital age, how technology has transformed so much of our lives. And I'm just continuously impressed by it. That trip, however, enabled me to learn about a world that I was deeply fascinated by. And after spending a couple years as a street reporter on the news side in Cincinnati, I got an audition at CNN in Atlanta. The audition went well. I'll tell you about it sometime. Like, the details are really fun. I think so. All I knew is that the boss would not meet with you until he watched you audition first. And so at the end of the audition, he gets in my ear and he says, "I'll see you in my office." And I thought, that's great. So his name is Bob Fernand. He's a terrific man, lives in Georgia still to this day, later as a professor of journalism at University of Georgia, Athens. And he said, "Bill, you're 30 years old, but you look 18. But I'm going to sell you to my boss." And he takes my resume and he turns it over on the table and says, "I need you to write down every country you've been to." So I got the 40 or 50. I said, "You want me to keep going?" He goes, "No, that's good enough."
How convenient.
Yeah. So I remember his words exactly. If I'm going to sell you to my boss to hire you, this is how I'm going to do it. And so I got the job, and it was a fantastic 10 years filled with like exhilarating experiences and really a hard-earned hustle to try and win the trust of people who did not know you. That was a real personal challenge, professional challenge to me. It took a while. I mentor, I believe, a lot of people around here at Fox, and I'll give them a lot of the lessons that I had learned down there during that experience. And heck, that was 30 years ago this past August.
Well, you're 60 now and you look 45, so you must be taking care of yourself.
I'll take it.
Now, you've been at Fox News for 2 decades now. So what changes have you seen in newsroom culture during that time?
Wow. 20 years seems like a big chunk of time.
But it flies by.
When I hear you say it, I agree with you. Is that? I think, I guess 2 ways I would answer that. Number one, I think the structural changes in this company the physical changes are significant. The investments that the company has put back in to bring us up to speed and keep us that way have been significant. And I think also when I crossed over, it was 2005, Fox was definitely on the rise. That was a big reason why I was attracted to it, because of the ratings domination that it started to show. And I want to be a part of that. And in 20 years, I don't know anyone who predicted the growth and the influence that Fox would have today 20 years ago.
For sure. In a 24/7 news cycle, how do you balance speed with accuracy?
It has changed significantly. I think in the digital age, what I would argue is that, well, let me back up. We always want to be fast. And we always want to be first.
And you want to be right.
And you want to be right. And that third component is so important to make sure that your day goes well. All right? Because when you're not, it can be a miserable time. I think Twitter changed the game. Fox was always fast. I always admired from afar the ability of the anchors who work here, because they can take 2 sentences of copy and make 5 minutes out of it. And I was always impressed by that. And with a sports background, one of the things you learn as a sports reporter and a sports anchor is that your brain sees images, and your images tell your mouth what to say and how to talk. And Roger, to be honest with you, that's like the secret sauce of cable news. How long can you keep it going? Do you get your producers in the control room time to get an analyst up on the air, on the phone, to get a reporter up? And if you can do that, you're going to have the ability to keep that story on the air longer, which we hope keeps the audience longer and builds, which is the intent of that.
Well, you're making me think of the way you cover election night returns. I mean, the facts are changing instantaneously, and you have to go with the flow. And you're standing in the front of that huge board that is in and of itself is very impressive, the technology. And you can tell us what's going on in some obscure county in Wisconsin or Iowa. That's not teleprompter stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing in the prompter for that night, and they can be very, very long nights. I think the reason I'm able to do that is this kind of started back in '08, and I love geography, and I like numbers, and I like politics, and it seems to be a pretty good combination for me. The other thing, Roger, is that's game day.
For sure.
You know, the midterms are important. We've got off-year elections come up in November. They're important. But when you're electing a president of the United States, it is a supreme responsibility. And you better know your stuff. Reflecting on my old high school football sports background, you better come ready to play.
And you can't just report the what. You have to talk about the why and the how and all that.
On that point, I would just say the knowledge is cumulative. So every election we do, we hope to be better than we were in the previous time.
Right. So on any given day, there's obviously more news than you could ever report. How do you and your producers decide what stories get airtime?
And which ones don't?
And which ones don't, right?
Yeah,
most of them don't.
Yeah, that's right. We have a great team. We have a plan every day. We have a plan every night. We have a plan that gets blasted out at 5 o'clock in the morning to everybody. I think I would take that question and flip it around a little bit. When you think that, Roger and his wife are out in Kansas City and they're looking for the latest news and information on any particular story, we're competing with your remote control. And in all likelihood, you might have an iPad open or a laptop or a computer or your phone, and we're competing with that iPhone as well. This may sound strange to those on the outside, but on the inside, what I'm hoping for is that we throw the rundown out and we find ourselves in a story that no one predicted. And to me, those are the most exciting and challenging days.
It's a moving target constantly.
Yeah. Can I just add to that?
Sure.
Because the age of Twitter and the age of Donald Trump, they were pretty close to the same intersection.
Right.
My sense for him thus far in Trump 2.0 is that he's moving he's fast, don't get me wrong, but he's moving at a different and more deliberate pace. Trump 1.0, Roger, we do a 3-hour show every day, and we would walk in there and just the whole thing would just get blown up at 9:01, and off we rode for the next 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my intent for you is to make sure that you as a viewer, I don't want you to feel as if you're missing anything. And for us to be live is a very important component of cable news.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting metaphor, competing with the remote. And I believe that's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. So in an era of deep fakes and misinformation, how do you vet your sources?
I think you must rely on the experience that you have had and that you bring into the office, into the team. You learn over time who you can trust.
And then there are some times when you interview somebody because you just need to interview a particular person, and they might not be trustworthy. So it's inevitable that on some occasions you'll interview someone who pushed his misinformation. What's your strategy for real-time correction without being argumentative?
Without being a brat?
Right.
The viewers let us know when they think we've been talking too much and they want to hear the other person speak. They're not shy about that. I think my approach is to prepare as best as I possibly can. And that's my job, my responsibility. It's incumbent upon me to know the facts of a particular story. For example, today we had someone for the White House that were talking about 120 new ideas that Maha has initiated. Well, there is no way for me to honestly know all 120, but I can have a general sense as to whether what they're saying aligns with what their policy has been so far. I also think a couple of things. I think the consumer is much more savvy than we give them credit. We compete. We see stories come across all the time when we're on the air. And we have to make a snap judgment. Is this legit or not? And, we rely on our own resources, and we've got people who work the desk here in New York or Washington, D.C., or you name it, your corner of the world, to try and run that down. I think the consumer is more savvy than most people give them credit. I'll give you one example. In August, there was this video it just went out like wildfire, and like a prairie fire, as we say. And it was of an aquarium, and the aquarium busted, and all the fish and all the people are, And for the first 3 seconds, Roger, you thought, wow, I've never seen that before in my life. Then you remember the age in which we're living in, and it's AI.
Right.
And last week, a very similar video was circulating. It was all over Instagram and TikTok and X. And it was of an aquarium in a different place, different location, different country, of a woman holding a hammer and striking the aquarium with a hammer. And instantly we knew that it was a very well-designed, computer-generated fake. And I would argue that we are learning, just like the viewer is learning, to discern what is real and what is not. I think that's the best way I think I can answer your question when I link it to the experience that we're bringing to our team every day to make sure that we can trust the people who we are reading and listening to, whether it's audio or video.
And of course, you need to be constantly vigilant. And I think you are.
Well, thank you. 100%. It takes a team, and we've got a good one.
Your change initiative has the budget. The strategy looks solid, and everyone's nodding along in the meetings. But for some reason, it's going nowhere. Dr. Roger Dean Duncan knows why. After 40 years in the trenches with top business leaders, he knows that change fails when organizations lack the right foundations: trust, accountability, and real communication. Dr. Duncan's free 10-minute assessment shows you exactly where your organization stands. Answer a few straightforward questions that reveal your true change readiness level. Don't waste months discovering the hard way. Get your free assessment today at leadershop.net/change. Again, that's leadershop.net/change.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the team thing. What leadership qualities are essential in a high-pressure newsroom? And not just with the producers, but those of you who are on the air. You exercise leadership in your own way. So what qualities are required?
Good question. How do I answer that? I'm a big believer in showing up and showing up with energy and enthusiasm. I'm a big believer in positive reinforcement. Being a middle child, the negative reinforcement doesn't fit me so well, but I think that's all right. When it's necessary, I'll get to that. I try to make everyone within my orbit feel a sense of responsibility and duty and belonging so that they know that they are part of the team. When it comes to leadership, I think that goes a very long way. And it's my experience working with, a lot of folks who are on a team are young and they want to be shown the way. And I take that responsibility very seriously.
Yeah. So how do you prepare mentally and emotionally for covering traumatic events? Like this morning, you led with the story of that horrific murder down in North Carolina. How do you prepare for that?
I think some stories strike us in ways that others perhaps do not, or vice versa. I think if you want to do the job effectively, you keep your head and your heart at a certain distance. The reason why I've learned that's important, not that I don't have a heart, but it helps your brain to stay clear and you can think through it. A lot of times when you see us out in the field, I don't know, maybe it's a hurricane, Roger, maybe it's a terror attack, maybe it's a school shooting, maybe it's overseas, maybe it's Iraq or somewhere in the Middle East. We're operating without a teleprompter, and you really have to rely on this to make sure that the story is in sync.
Yeah.
And I think if you're getting caught up emotionally, you're going to be less effective.
It must be even harder when you're on the air. I recall an instant 50 plus years ago when I was a young reporter and I went to visit with a Vietnam widow. She had been a widow for about a week. And I remember how hard that was for me to have that conversation with her, and she was the one suffering. And fortunately, I wasn't on the air, but I can empathize with how tough it is to cover some of these stories, especially when you're on the air and it's live.
Yeah.
Well, how has social media changed the way journalists work and engage with audiences? You've mentioned social media multiple times.
Yeah, it's a big part of the strategy that we're trying to figure out. I think it's still relatively new. I mean, you could argue that cable news is still relatively new. But if I were to tell you we're on the air from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day in Kansas City, you might be watching. But you're probably not watching 5 days a week because it doesn't suit your life. On the East Coast, it's 9 to 11. On the West Coast, it's 6 to 9 a.m. It's a substantial block of time, but it's not where you're able to meet everyone all the time. I think a couple of things about social media has enabled us to reach people in ways that we have not been able to do before. I also think our digital team has gotten very strong. And I think when we're limited by time in many ways for the broadcast side of our cable show, you can do a lot deeper dive with longer pieces on digital, in digital media. And there's some very good opportunities there.
Well, what role do algorithms play in shaping what stories get attention?
Well, I wish I knew. I wish I could understand the algorithm. Smarter people than me apparently do. I don't know, Roger. I guess I would say I hope they play to our favor. But I have no control over them. And maybe they're consistent and maybe they're not. But over time, I hope they are. I hope they're fair.
Yeah. Hope so. So news reporting is all about storytelling. And so what's the role of empathy in that storytelling?
Wow. You better have it, or the audience will not think much of you. But it's important to do it when it's appropriate. We have a lot of people who are victims of crime. We have a lot of people who are victims of terrible violence or terrorism. And their lives have forever been affected by it. And it's incumbent upon us to feel the moment. You know, a lot of people ask me what stories were the most significant. And I always say 9/11 first. And it's really on my mind because I was coming home late last night. I shouldn't have been out, but it was a dinner I had to go to. And I was coming home, and I live downtown in Greenwich Village, and every year they test the lights for 9/11. And, you know, yesterday was September 9th, and I got out of the taxi, and I look up, and I'm like, holy cow, it's that day again. And September 11th has a charge, and the Thoughts and Friends will run this package every year that they've assembled. I think it's 18 minutes in light. I think maybe shorter, maybe longer, I'm not sure. And we'll roll that out tomorrow sometime in the 8:30 Eastern time slot. And it'll take you right back to that day. And it's unmistakable. And you think about 3,000 people, right? You know? So I always mention that story. For some reason, I covered an earthquake in Haiti in 2010, January of 2010. And I just thought, you know, here's the poorest country in the world. Everybody runs their human experiments in Haiti. Everybody wants to like test a new fresh water system. They go to Haiti to do it. And they've got nothing to begin with, and that here Mother Nature comes ripping through their lives. And
oh boy,
that got to me. And I think the other one was Sandy Hook. How to walk around, and in our business, you know, they want to get you to the camera as quickly as possible. That's fine, but you also have to have something to say.
Right.
There was very little information at the time, and I had to look around, and I don't know, it came to me at that moment that this was December 12th, I believe, or maybe December 14th, I can't recall, but it was 2 weeks away from Christmas. And I remember just thinking, you know, the families of these victims have presents under the tree already, some of them, that will never be unwrapped. And to me at the moment, I thought it was the best way to help people understand the degree of loss.
Yeah.
So that was empathy.
For sure. Reminds me of the story of the little girl who was late coming home from school, and her mother asked her what happened, and she said, well, I had to stop. My little friend Sally was crying because her dolly was broken. And she said, oh, did you help her fix her dolly? She said, no, I helped her cry. To me, that's a very touching image.
Yeah.
So, Bill, what is your ritual before going live on air? What do you do?
If you ask Dana, I am a creature of habit. I just find that if you stick to your schedule and you're disciplined enough, you'll be able to hit all your marks. We do our research. We print the articles that are necessary. I'm old school. I still highlight. I write down notes, you know, in the column, and to make sure my thoughts are organized. And what I'll tell a lot of folks is you always want to have a spare question in your back pocket.
Right.
For anyone, about anything. Because in our world, anything can happen at any time. You just want to make sure that you've got that card that you can pull out and keep the conversation going. It can be the preparation, Roger. It could be, you know, I do makeup at 8:20. I get dressed at 8:25. I write a tease at 8:30. I go and see the makeup folks and make sure I did everything right. During COVID, I started doing my own makeup because I can do it very fast. And so I just kind of make a flyby in there. I put a series of Altoids in my pocket, and I have a Starbucks grande latte, and I have a banana, and I eat at 9:30 Eastern time, and I have a glass of cold water there the entire time. And I don't know, are those rituals or habits? Or
Sounds like you're kind of on automatic.
yeah, so that gets me through.
So what's one moment in your career that fundamentally changed the way you see the world?
Okay, then that would go back to the original part of our conversation. Then that was the midlife crisis I suffered at age 26, 27, and backpacked around the world. It had the single greatest impression on me, and I'm grateful I was able to make it happen.
So what responsibility do news anchors have in restoring trust in journalism?
I hope they still do. And if they don't, that's on us. What I would say is to your readers, if there is a lack of trust in what we're doing, come back and give us a chance.
Yeah.
And watch a few shows. You can judge me, you can judge Dana, you can judge the veracity of our guests and the subjects we cover, and decide for yourself. We give a lot of effort to making sure that we are accurate every hour of our show that we do every day.
Well, you have to. And frankly, you must do it well because Fox certainly has a good reputation.
Well, thank you.
So, Bill, if you were not a journalist, what would you be doing? I know, playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, but
never had the ability. I think it would be a blast to be a play-by-play announcer for an NFL team. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, we discussed a lot of heavy topics in this conversation. And, you know, I was in that sports world, and I kind of think, Roger, as I look at it now, that's a pretty good frame for a life because it is fun. And it's a game, but it's fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to live in that world. And I find it personally to be a great escape. And if I ever had the opportunity, I'd jump on it. The other thing is, you know, I love geography and I love to get away. And there's a part of me that wishes I had studied aviation. And had I, perhaps I would have the ability to be a pilot, to fly something that would help me leave the concrete and steel that I'm sitting around.
well, you can still do that. Just find the time.
You know, you're right. You're right about that.
So what legacy do you hope that you will leave in the field of broadcast journalism?
I hope I don't have to leave yet.
I hope so too.
I think I got a couple more years in me. I think if someone would say Hemmer was fair, I would take that as the high compliment, perhaps the highest. He did his job and he was fair. In a 24/7 cable world, if you can be fair and fast, but people see you as fair, I think that's a great note to go out on.
Yeah. Well, my observation is that you are fast, fair, and friendly.
Thank you.
That's a good combination.
That's high praise.
Well, we wish you the very best, Bill, and we thank you for being our guest on Leadership. Bill Hemmer's career reminds us that journalism, at its best, is not just about delivering information, it's about earning trust. At a time when audiences are questioning what's real, what's biased, and what's missing, Bill's reflections offer a reminder that integrity matters more than ever. Whether you're a journalist, a leader, or simply someone trying to stay informed, the challenge remains the same: to listen carefully, think critically, and speak with purpose. In other episodes of Leadership, I share my exclusive conversations with top thought leaders who offer smart tips to boost your effectiveness in both your professional and personal life. My guests include superstars like Stephen M.R. Covey, Liz Wiseman, Doug Conant, Dory Clark, Heather Younger, Marshall Goldsmith, Bill George, Jessica Chin, Guy Kawasaki, Dana Perino, Amy Edmondson, Pat Flynn, David Ulrich, and many others who have insightful things to say that can help you turn ideas into breakthroughs. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay informed on what's coming your way. Believe me, folks, you don't want to miss any of our episodes. When you subscribe, you'll also receive regular doses of high-value written content. And remember that your next performance breakthrough could be one click away. Explore the free resources waiting for you at leadership.net. That's leadership.net. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, stay safe, be happy, and spread good cheer wherever you go. For Leadership, I'm Roger Dean Duncan.